Okay, update. So when I first started this page, I started it for recovering from my eating disorder. And then I kind of stopped posting to that page as I recovered, and food wasn't the main focus of my life, which was incredible. And then eventually I had some stuff with substances come up because substances had been part of my past as well. And I had been sober for 13 years. I got sober in 2011, November 2011. So 13 years. And then I started using weed when I broke my foot almost 5 years ago. And then I really struggled to stop. So I made some videos about trying to quit weed. Now I have realized that I'm autistic. So I've already known I was ADHD. I was diagnosed ADHD when I was 7. And it always felt like I'm just fast. I talk a lot. I do things fast. And I knew I was impulsive. I didn't really totally connect the two. You know, it's just like when I had it for so long, it just didn't really make a difference. And it felt like so many people had it. I don't know. I just didn't really give it any attention. But I also just struggled a lot in my life. I always felt different. I always struggled to feel like I felt in, even if people are telling me I felt in, like I didn't feel it inside. Felt like no one liked me. I've always felt so stupid, so stupid. Like I could cry right now thinking about how much crap I've given myself for being and feeling so mentally lacking sometimes. And one of my biggest fears of my life, like when I did my first 4th step, and I think it was on multiple 4th steps, you know, where you admit like everything you did wrong. My 4th step was my thing that was the hardest thing for me to say, not like crashing my mom's car or all these other awful things I did. But my biggest fear is that I am actually R-word, so broken, and no one knows because I'm doing such a good job holding it together. And if I just let it slip at all, they're gonna see and I'll be like outcast. And I've always felt that way. And I'm like, as these pieces have been adding up in my life, coming together, which I kind of was just pushing into the back of my mind, like the amount of people I had in my life tell me they've been diagnosed with autism and that I should get checked, probably like at least 3. And then I just forget about it, you know, like it just wasn't connecting in my brain. But then when I started hearing about it, I realized I just didn't know what autism was, especially in a woman. I've been told I know I'm a highly sensitive person, and highly sensitive person matches up really well with level 1 autism. And so when I found out on December 14th, self-discovery, that I'm most likely autistic, along with ADHD, which forms ADHD, AUDHD, such a cute little term, I think. It was just so freeing. I just felt like, oh my gosh, I've never been broken. I'm not really the problem. It's just I have a different type of brain. And so it's been almost a month, coming up on a month. And I just have I didn't remember my childhood very much, but now I'm remembering things. And that's just all the moments that I used to beat myself up about. All of it is explained by autism, and all of the hate and shame I've had for myself for getting into drugs and alcohol, for having this eating disorder, for not being able to function like a normal human. It's been my biggest struggle in life, is figuring out what's wrong with me and trying to fix it so I can be a normal human, and then to realize that there's nothing wrong with me. And the instruction book that I didn't get about how to be a human is because I'm not that type of human. I'm a different type of human, and none of us need a book. We can just be ourselves. Because I always was if only there was a book that would tell me how to be, how am I supposed to be, you know? Anyway, so I wanted to get on here, make this short video, because after I figured it out, I was like, holy shit, like this forgiveness I feel for myself, for the drug addiction, for the eating disorder. I was just able to forgive myself, and I was able to see that those were coping skills. Like I've always heard, like it's helping you in some way, you're self-medicating, but I didn't realize to what a level. And I just look at like the drinking and the eating disorder, and I'm like, that was sensory seeking. That was trying to not feel me. I remember when I would drink, I'd be like, I just don't want to feel like me, because feeling like me means that feeling like I know that I'm wrong, that I'm not quite right, that I don't quite fit here. So if I could just not feel like me, if I could just not feel that like deep down I'm the mistake, it just felt so good. And it's made me think that like, and I don't, I'm not a scientist or like a doctor, but I just feel like so much addiction, especially I think back to people in AA. I think so many people who like are doing addictive substances or behaviors and can't stop, even though they're trying, even through their best effort. Maybe it's because we have a different brain, and that brain is driving us to do these, to repeat these things again and again, so that we don't have to feel like the way we feel, because the world has told us the way we feel is bad, and we know that inside on a deep level. So seeking out these behaviors that are repetitive, that are stubborn, that are black and white, it just makes so much sense. I was talking to this friend I've made on Instagram, because I've made this account now, called from Day One Adhd, because like I have to share my freaking life, even though like my rejection sensitivity freaks me. I get a lot of anxiety about it. It's just like I really feel my best when I'm like sharing my truth and connecting with other people who get it. But I was talking to this girl about like, so for the eating disorder, it's like, I think it was, again, I didn't have to feel like myself. I could like eat all the food and like just be thinking about the food. I could throw up and like have that sensation, or not be thinking about how I don't feel like just normally being me, like I don't feel good because I have an eating disorder. I also think it's like special interest, focusing on your body as a woman and hyperfixating on it is normal. That's acceptable. Hating yourself, going to extreme measures to change yourself, comparing yourself to everyone, trying to remove things about yourself that naturally occur as you grow. It's a socially acceptable special interest, and it was okay for me to just be hyper thinking about it all of the time. And one of the things I've learned is that people with eating disorders often get missed as autistic, because people just look at it as the eating disorder. They don't see what's underneath it. And I think same things with drug and addiction, like that I wasn't born with an instruction manual is something I heard so much in AA. Something else about the eating disorders though, I think also like I had this idea that if I could look the part, then I might feel normal. If I could lose the weight or whatever it was, then people would see me as normal. I would feel normal, but I didn't. The more weight I lost, like I felt worse. I did not feel good. Eating really is the answer. But yeah, that impulsiveness, it's like with food, it's like you're not eating right, and then it's like in one decision, or you are eating right. So no, just a second. Like I remember with my eating disorder, I went to treatment a bunch, and it was just like I had every intention to follow through. Like I wanted to stick to our plan, but my impulsive ADHD brain would in a split second make the decision that it needed to happen, and then it would happen. But it's like, it's so hard to stop that impulsive feeling, and it comes so strong. As I was talking to this friend, I was looking through the past videos I made, and I was reading some of the comments I had gotten, because I kind of just like checked out of the page when it wasn't like, a special interest. In order to recover from these things, I really had to make it a special interest for me to get sober. It's like it had to become my identity. Like I had to listen to a podcast all the time, and that's what I'm doing now. It's like I really love to just like chew up this information and take it in, and now it's like my special interest is learning about my brain, learning about ADHD, learning about autism. How is this affecting my life? And not seeing it as like oh, it's a superpower, you know, like that gaslit, like didn't really ever feel good to me, but recognizing like, though this is hard, this is like a disability and a handicap in this world, in the society that we're in, and how can I help accommodate myself in different ways, support myself in different ways so that I'm not driven to such extreme behaviors in order to like escape the feeling of me. I remember watching so many eating disorder videos, and like there'd be so many, and then it's like you just don't hear from them, and it's like, how are they doing now? It's been years. So anyone following this, I'm doing really good. Food stuff hasn't been an issue of me for so long. Although I do remember like during the pandemic, I've always loved bean and cheese burritos. Like it was a huge thing for my parents because all I wanted to eat was a bean and cheese burrito when I was little. And in my teens, like bean and cheese burritos have always been my thing. And when I broke my foot, I went back to bean and cheese burritos and quesadillas. And I tell my therapist, you know, like all I want to do is eat bean and cheese burritos. Like I'm eating like 3 to 5 a day, you know, like, and I could eat this meal only. And it's like that guilt I felt like this must still be the eating disorder, but like I'm gonna just trust with it because I'm kind of doing intuitive eating now. And I got distracted by this lava lamp. I'm doing intuitive eating now, and so like I'm just gonna eat the bean and cheese burritos, and now I realize like that's like an autistic thing to like repeat the same meal all the time. But like, and I think for me, because I'm a rule follower and I have autism, I also like, I think, I'm trying to remember if I made this page before or after orthorexia. I think this was after orthorexia, like orthorexia kind of triggered bulimia again, and then I made the page. With that orthorexia, it's like I had my daughter, and it was like, okay, I'm just gonna start eating healthy food, and then I was able to obsess about it so much and just get so healthy that healthy became unhealthy. So I now consider it healthy if I have candy. If I'm vegan also, eating eggs now because I need freaking more protein, which I didn't think I did, but I'm almost 40. Oh my gosh, I'm all over the place. So I'm vegan, but like a veggie burger and onion rings sometimes is more healthy for me than a salad, you know, but also like trying to have variety and trying to not like hyper focus on my food. However, now I've gone like the other direction, and food just really pisses me off. Like it just feels like an inconvenience. Like the fact that I have to feed my family 3 times a day, the fact that I have to feed myself 3 times a day, it just feels like too much now. Where before I remember thinking like, how are people not thinking about food all the time? And it's like, oh yeah, because you were starving yourself. So like your brain was thinking about the food because like survival. But now that you're fed and you have other interests and hobbies in your life, food isn't your main thing. It's not the main thing that brings you joy. I remember being like, what if I could wish for anything, what would it be? And it used to be like to be alone in my hotel room, like all I need is a toilet and some food, and I'll be content because I won't have to feel like myself, and I'll just like keep repeating that action like OCD. It's like I just have so many feelings. I'm like shaking a little bit. It's like I've just been looking for this answer my whole life, I feel like, and now I feel like I want to tell other people like, oh my gosh, maybe it's not an eating disorder. Maybe it's not just an eating disorder. Maybe it's not just drug addiction. Maybe you can't stop doing that thing, not because you're a bad person, but because like your brain works different and it's not getting supported the way it needs to be supported. It's not being diagnosed or recognized by the way for what it is. Like people are like, why do you need a diagnosis? And which is hard because in the autism community, self-diagnosis is acceptable because to get a full diagnosis is expensive, and like, why do we have to jump through their neurotypical hoops again for more validation? Like that's what I've done my whole life. But on the other hand, I want that validation, especially telling some particular people. But like it's, you know, I always want to do the extra work for like the certification. So it's like I can tell myself like, no, see, you did do it. You do have it. You didn't just convince yourself. But I also think diagnosis is just so helpful to recognize and to give you the support you need. Even if it's like, now I take fidget toys in my pocket. Now I'm trying to parent differently. Now, like, we got my pandemic, because she doesn't like her bed. Like, I'm just trying to not follow the typical rules. I'm trying to find what works for me and for us. Anyways, I could say so much more. I'm trying to think of anything specifically for the eating disorder. You know, that extreme thinking, the repetition, the impulsiveness, the sensory seeking, the acceptable special interest. I think it makes so much sense. Anyways, so for weed, on my updates, so my last videos, I think I had like maybe 100 days off of weed. And what I do with weed is in October, I start freaking out. I need to be sober because I like idolize sobriety, which is, I'm sure, some weird thing in my brain I just like really attached to. That sobriety is better, and if I'm not sober, I suck. But now I'm seeing weed as like, oh yeah, it's a tool, you know? Like, I had to mask a lot today, you know? Or I'm gonna have to go to a party and it's gonna be challenging for me. A little bit of weed might help. So I'm trying to find that edge of maybe I can live in the gray. Maybe I don't have to be so black and white. Okay,